Welcome, everyone, to the Trailblazing Leaders Podcast. It's my goal today to bring you important insights and wisdom from some of the most exceptional leaders in business today. Leaders who have a track record of driving business growth by having a deep passion for attracting and developing and retaining great talent. And during each episode, I'm going to discuss with my guests their expertise. I want to hear their stories and innovations that are covering a range of trailblazing leadership topics. I want to share with you their philosophy about leadership and how they're leading teams and developing teaming, the art and science that they've found in creating an organizational culture and team leaders who attract and grow and retain great talent, plus what they recommend from their careers for up and coming trailblazing leaders. Please stay with us to the end of the program and I'll be sharing how you can get a special leadership gift. Today, I'm excited to introduce to you the founding partner and CEO at the Sports Facilities Companies, Jason Clement. The Sports Facilities Company is one of the most prominent organizations in the management and development of sports, recreation, wellness, and event facilities across the United States. I didn't even know this existed, but Jason and his company, which was founded in 2003 by himself, they have grown into the largest single network of tournament and community-based sports facilities in the United States. They work in over 3,000 communities and develop those projects in 3,000 communities nationwide and have been responsible to oversee $15 billion in development of these projects and community sports facilities. And through their managed venues, they now host over 25 million visits annually and drive $200 million in overnight hotel stays. His company makes a huge impact in our country. His firm is a founding member of the Aspen Institute Project Play 2020, and it serves on the United States President's Council of Economic Advisors. Jason is involved in various charitable organizations. He's served on the boards of Habitat for Humanity, Man Up and Go, and the Calvary Christian High School. So Jason, welcome to the show. And given your unique niche and how your company operates that develops thousands of sports communities and enables millions of visitors and their families to participate in sports, I want to focus on what is your team leadership philosophy. Let's start there.
It's a really fun space to be in right now. And sometimes, leadership can be utilized as like a cliche word. It's a throwaway
Yes,
word. But
sure.
From our perspective, and I've heard this quote, leadership is about turning intention into reality and making it scalable and sustainable. That's what leadership is.
Oh, I love that quote.
Yeah.
Leadership is about turning intention into reality. What a beautiful quote.
And then making it sustainable, right? And that's from the former chief marketing officer at Chick-fil-A, right? So you can imagine how they've grown and the chief marketing officer that came up with the cow shtick and all of that. But anyway, it's always about the team, right? Always. And at the heart of our leadership philosophy here, it's our values, right? It all comes from our values, and one of our main values is service. Accountability, collaboration, which is very much about communication with team, excellence, and service. And from our perspective, that's what it's about. And every team member that we have, continues to raise the bar as it relates to service. And so when we think about that from a team perspective, and to your point, we're blessed, we're fortunate, we get to work in sports, youth and amateur sports, and there are so many great examples of high achieving, great teams and leaders in the sports space and sports history. And I think about, folks like John Wooden or Greg Popovich, in the basketball courts. And
absolutely.
I think about Greg Popovich and back in the day when they were making their run, with Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili and all of that. I lived in San Antonio for a brief stint in the early 2000s. They weren't in the locker room at halftime in a heated game saying, hey, would you just please set this pick over here? Or would you next time, just pass the ball this way? They're direct, they're candid, but they do it in a spirit of trust, right? And so everything about teamwork and leadership, trust is the foundational element that we talk about. And so we talk a lot about Stephen Covey's trust bank account and what it takes. And the way that I think about it, and whenever we onboard new team members, I still do the onboarding for our general managers and leadership folks and corporate team here. We look at the trust bank model, and I don't even know if you remember the movie. I forget what it was called, with Justin Timberlake, where he'd walk around with like the amount of time that they had left on their in their life, and you could see it. I
Oh,
think about
yes.
the trust bank account in that way. So every interaction, every relationship, whether it's a work, a professional, my wife, my kids, I'm thinking about where's that trust bank account right now, and how can I put deposits into that? And ultimately, service is the best way to do it. And when you make a mistake or you fall short, not if, when, do I have the trust to be able to work through it? To Stephen Covey's point, make an honest and sincere apology, and then go fix it. Because at the end of that, the trust bank account's actually going to be higher than it was before the mistake was made altogether. So leadership, team building, collaboration, and how we serve one another is ultimately, the hallmark and foundation to what we think about and how we grow as an organization.
So let's stay on this topic of trust for just a second.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Patrick Lencioni's 5 Behaviors of a High-Performing Team.
Yes.
And he talks about a similar thing, vulnerability-based trust. And I think the concept is really clear. I watch Formula One racing, and when you see they can change 4 tires and fill a car in 28 seconds, faster than you can sign a pin, that is a high-performing, trusted team. So what I'd love for you to share is, for those who don't know the trust bank or whatever, how do you build vulnerability-based trust with a new team member? What do you ask of the team leader to start the very beginning of trust building? What does that relationship look like from your side?
Yeah, first, clear expectations, right? And make commitments to one another. Here's what you can expect from me, and here's what I expect from you. And when you make small commitments and then honor those small commitments, you start to build trust. And look, we don't go this way with a new team member. Show up at this time. Like it's actually the first thing that I share is I want you to know that you don't have to earn my trust. You have my trust. You're here. We hired you, and we have a pretty extensive hiring process, which I could go through. You're sitting here today because I trust you and because we trust you. So let's start at that point. Have confidence, bring your best, and here are the clear, expectations that we have of you. And by the way, here's the clear goal, right? We have a saying that the scoreboard matters, right? To use the sports metaphor here.
Do.
And how do you know that you're going to win the game if you don't know what the score needs to be or what you need to go achieve? So not that we've always gotten it right. Sometimes we don't have clear objectives and goals, to speak to Lencioni's philosophies here. But when we don't, we try to go fix it. Here's what the goals are. And now here's my role on the team. Here's your role on the team. Here's how we come together. Look, you're the wide receiver. I'm the left tackle. I'm not going to go out for the pass. You go out for the pass. You catch the ball. That's your job. My job's to protect over here. And we all have different roles, but when we come together, that's how we go win the game and achieve those goals and those expectations. So when they come in for that onboarding, we use some of those sports metaphors, and sometimes they get tired, but it works for us. And then we talk about what's the clear objective, what's the clear goal. Here's how we're going to measure success together along the way. And then we track against it. And what's really important that I've found, like you can come in and do a rah-rah speech, you can do an onboarding in the honeymoon and everybody's excited and you have clear expectations. You have to continue to talk about it. And the mistakes that I've made in my history is when I've just taken for granted that people got it. And I don't need to say the same thing over and over and over again. Well, guess what? I do. We all do. And that's how it locks in. And that's how, the altruistic values and vision and mission that you have, that's how it actually becomes part of the culture. And when you talk about culture, I think you used that word earlier. Culture, we define it as what is normal. That's your culture. And so we need to talk about the things that we expect and the things that we do consistently and constantly, because then they become normal. And that's how it feeds into the culture.
Yeah. And so I want to just reiterate a few things there, which is too often leaders think they make a statement or provide their values or set a goal. They say it once and it lands and sticks and everybody remembers it. But I think what happens is they forget the human being and the human mind is chronically distracted,
Yes.
overwhelmed with information. People are processing 20 other things simultaneously. And that, I come from the marketing business, repetition matters. And when you're tired of it, they're just hearing it. That's a thing in the marketing where that's when the marketing team is sick of it, that means the consumer is just barely paying attention. And that's true for our employees. So I think advice we would share is never never not repeat your values over and over and over again. You put them up on your wall. You want to be sick of them because that means they're finally just landing. I would, that's what you say. That's what been my experience.
And as I said, I've got my history is littered with the graveyard of mistakes of where I've taken that for granted. And you're exactly right, Russell. Yeah.
So let's go on that for just a second, because I want to come back. So give me a few of the ones that were like, oh my gosh, and then I'll share a few of mine. How about a few big mistakes?
Yeah. Well, as you grow, you work yourself out of a job, right? So we started, and look, I had the best partners, when we started and founded this organization in 2003, Dev Patik, Brian Finnerty, Eric Sullivan, as we built and grown. And, as you grow and scale to 3,000 team members, which is what we have now, you work yourself out of a job, right? As you continue to move forward.
Yep.
And our very first, outsourced managed venues, I oversaw that. I was, kind of the jack of all trades. I, was the main client liaison. I quarterbacked the team, and not because I'm, a great operator necessarily, but understood the expectations, and we could lead and manage and develop and grow. Well, as you scale and grow, you build an HR department, you build a finance department, you build a marketing department, a sales department, risk, legal, all of those things, and then unique specialty programming pieces, and you work yourself out of a job and replace yourself. And as I worked myself out of a job and put in vice presidents and senior vice presidents to oversee the account operations, the mistake I made is what we just mentioned, and here's the way that we do things, right? The Chick-fil-A, I'll use other organizations. So McDonald's, Big Mac, they've got the special ingredients, right? You make a Big Mac a certain way. I don't know that anybody are huge Big Mac fans, but that's the idea. Well, we have an SFC way here of doing things. Here's how often we interact with clients. Here's the way that we report. Here's the way that we communicate with one another. Here's how we're accountable. Here's how we set expectations. Here's how we deliver on those. Those are the non-negotiables for us. And the mistakes that I've made is when I've taken that for granted, and that, hey, the way that we set things up are the way that things are happening. And you have to constantly and consistently stay on that so that, you're delivering the experience and the service that you've built your reputation on. And Russell, to your point, when we haven't stayed on that, and the things that are in the non-negotiables, it's the smallest list out of everything, right? Then you have a list of, strong preferences, right? Like, hey, this is what you should do, unless you have a much better idea. And that's a little bit bigger list. And then it's, you're up to you, right? Your personal preference on a whole bunch of other things in terms of how you operate, these venues. But those non-negotiables are non-negotiable. They are foundational to why you drive success. And those are the reasons for my mistakes. I think the second that comes to mind is not coaching in the moment. I think when I was younger, I was like, man, that guy's a little crusty, in terms of the Greg Popoviches of the world. And in reality, coach in the moment, give the feedback immediately. It's less emotional, at that point in time. Throw emotions out of it. When you grow to 3,000, everybody's dealing with their own stuff, right? They're bringing their own payload to work every day. Let's move past all of that. Coach in the moment, be quick. Then you move on, and you really can only do that back to the trust word, right? That's the only way that works. But those are a few of the things I've had to learn along the way.
I really appreciated. Mine were similar, slightly different.
Yeah.
As a young entrepreneur, 24, I didn't have any role models coming from a family of physicians, and so I did a lot of micromanaging. I was controlling everything. That was a huge mistake. And then the other mistake is I didn't understand the importance of standardization of process. So everything was customized. And so we had chronic chaos until we realized, no, we need to standardize process and procedure. Even though we create custom product, there is this piece. And in yesterday's Wall Street Journal, there was an article in the journal on Boeing, and they had lost their way of standardizing the way to manufacture an airplane. And it was the same story, which is, hey, you build an airplane a certain way. There's a certain spec, and they had lost their way. Here's the biggest of the big, the greatest of the greatest, the largest of the largest. So anybody can lose their way if you forget the fundamentals. And as you say, as we have our non-negotiables, and our culture is our norm. I love that expression. Our culture is our norm. And I think that comes back to the team philosophy. We have a set of negotiables that you show up 100%. I'm assuming you do. And I'd like to add one more layer from all your experience. Where does this relationship of self-accountability to each other to achieve the goal play in both your culture and what you see in sport?
Look, it goes all the way back to playing sport, growing up. I grew up in a family of four siblings, and we played every sport. I'm from Iowa originally. I tell people I love the movie Field of Dreams, but in the sports facility development game, it's not build it and they will come. Build it and know they're coming, because you're doing the right things as you're leading up, to opening day here. But we were a baseball family. And I grew up bat boying for my dad. He was the high school baseball coach, and he won a few state championships along the way. I learned a lot just following him around. I learned some colorful language, at that point in time as a coach. But he was a great coach and a great leader. And I think when you're around that and you see relatively high level of performance, and then look, my younger brother, he's the hitting coach at Ole Miss. They won the national championship 2 years ago. My youngest brother was the 3rd draft pick in the Major League Baseball draft. My sister was the best athlete out of all of us, played softball. And but when you see high-level sports in that way, it starts with accountability. You're part of a team. And one of the great things about baseball and softball is that it's a team sport, and you rely on one another. But when you're in the batter's box or on the pitcher's mound, it's mano a mano, right? And so you've got to kind of step up and do your thing. You can't hide. You're out on display. Okay. And when you think about sports like wrestling, where it's really one-on-one, or tennis or golf, also great sports in that way. And then obviously the team sports are the team sports. But for me, if that's the question, and forgive me if I didn't answer it, foundationally, accountability to yourself and to one another is taught on the sports field at a very young age, which is part of the reason we love what we do. We believe that these facilities we develop, what happens in them, are creating, it's character development and creating the next generation of leaders because of what they're doing on the playing field. And so within our organization, that passion around the impact that you get to make bleeds into everything that we do. We're very fortunate to be able to do the work and earn a living in the business we're in.
Let's go down the path that you just brought up. One of the paths is, what challenges or differences are you seeing in the workforce today?
Yeah.
And then the second piece we'll get to is, you're really developing and creating atmospheres for the workforce of tomorrow. And I know that's a passionate topic of yours, so we'll come back to that. But let's start. What challenges are you seeing, and what advice do you have to leaders with the new workforce? And is it really new, and is it really not new? And what are you seeing out there?
I think every person wants to be fulfilled, right? They want to be fulfilled, and they want to make an impact and a difference. And so it's important to communicate to this generation of workforce why what they do matters, right? The old Simon Sinek why, piece. But for us, it's really important that the organization that you're a part of, right, is making an impact, and it's making a difference, and it's in the communities we're blessed to serve. We're improving those communities, the health, the mental, social, physical, spiritual health of those communities and those families are improved as a result of the work that we do in general as an organization. Then it's important for that specific role, for that individual, that they know why what they're doing is driving that mission and making that impact. It's the old, bricklayer story that you hear about, building a cathedral instead of just laying bricks, sort of thing. I know you've heard that. Probably all of your listeners have as well. For us, the concession stand worker isn't serving a Coke, right? Or a soda or a bottle of water. They're improving the health and economic vitality of that community based on what they're doing. And for me, that's what I've learned about, this generation, is it really matters to them how, what they're investing their time in, their focused time and energy, that it's making an impact. Yes, everyone needs to earn a living. Everyone wants to make money. But first and foremost, we want to be fulfilled at work, and we want to love doing it with the people that we get to work with. I mean, for those of us that work really hard, and you as an entrepreneur, you get this. I spend more time with my people at work than I do with my own family at home often. And that means you want to have that same sort of pride and fulfillment and joy in what you do. And especially when you're pulling on the rope that hard.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. I think the research that I just saw the other day was there's this gap of a 70% differential between how senior leaders believe employees understand the purpose of the organization and its connection to the employee, and how the employee understands the connection of the purpose of the organization to them. And I think what's so powerful about your company and what you do is that your mission has such clear value and purpose and heart and healing and growth and future that I could see why people say, oh, I want to work for that company. Their purpose is my purpose. I know I'm contributing to the future of the next generation, of families today. So I think you do it. I don't want to underestimate the power of what you bring and how you align the purpose of your company and the purpose of your workforce and how they change lives is in essence what you're saying.
Yeah. And Russell, I'll add to that. The mistakes we've made along the way in hiring, right? And learning how to profile and find those people that mission will resonate with. Again, we could probably do a whole podcast on mistakes here and what we've learned along the way. Sure. Full hour of just mistakes. But how that's manifested itself today for us is a very rigorous hiring process. Again, not some non-negotiable questions. We always ask, what has sport meant to you? What is the impact in your life? And if someone answers, hey, I'm a New England Patriots fan and I love watching the Patriots on Sunday, cool. That's great. And I love that's something you like to do. That's not what we're looking for, though, in the answers to that question. It's more about your upbringing and what fulfills you, right, and what drives you. So we want to make sure that why aligns really well with our why, because that's the starting point to a really long-lasting relationship in which we're going to work, and mutually really hard to make that difference and that impact. And then we've also do a lot of personality testing, culture index, DISC profiling, strength finder, all of those things to just make sure that we get it right. Because again, it's a cliche, but man, it's expensive when you make a mistake there. And
isn't it?
It is. And then, some people just aren't the right fit, for your organization and the work, and that's okay. There were many years, because when it's your baby and you start it and you build it, where you take it personally, right? When it's not a right fit. Maybe I'm just calloused now, but I've learned to call it early, not a good fit. Let's set you up so that you can go on and have success in whatever is the right fit for your career. And we can transition that really positively for everybody. And then let's make sure we get the right person on our team, right, on our seat, on our bus, to go have a ton of success and motivated by what we get to do.
That's the job of a leader. And when we're not doing that job of making sure we have the right team members on our bus, the whole team knows it and then sees the weakness in the leader and then starts to question all the way back to the very the element of trust.
Yes.
Can I trust you're leading this business? Well, look, you left Joe on here and Joe's kind of a slacker. Well, no. So we have to take it and realize that it's in everyone's benefit and their families. When we realize we as leaders are responsible to not just the workforce, but their families and their families, it's a huge responsibility.
Well said.
I want to go a little deeper into this aspect of how your passion and what the value you bring of developing the next generation. Sport creates character, behavior. There are many communities that are struggling because they're fatherless. So let's talk about that as just your personal passion and advice for how that personal passion and belief can help other companies and other company leaders.
Yeah, well, you definitely hit on a chord with me. Certainly the next generation and building those leaders. The fatherlessness epidemic that we have in this country and really around the world is something that is dear to me. My oldest son is adopted. 12-year-old son is adopted from Ethiopia. And, we, without getting too much into, the personal, we struggled getting pregnant early on. And we were led down this path to adopt from Ethiopia. And lo and behold, like a lot of stories, the moment we wrote the big check, Jana got pregnant, and our daughter was born. And the way the timing worked out, our daughter was born, and 2 days later, I was on a plane to Ethiopia to pick up our son, Will.
Oh, there you go.
And then we have a younger son as well. But as part of that, my eyes were open and exposed to the fatherlessness epidemic around the world. And you can chart back. I have a friend who is in high levels of government, elected official in Florida, and he launched a fatherless bill, $70 million bill to tackle fatherlessness in Florida as the Speaker of the House. And he said, he did the homework and he tied a lot of the societal issues, the downstream effects that we have in Florida here and around the country, to the fact that there wasn't a present dad and a strong leader in the household. And by the way, that's not to take anything away from moms. Everyone knows that moms are the key, right? And they are the key. But we have a responsibility, as men and as fathers, to raise the next generation in that way and be there presently. And then we have a responsibility for those that don't have fathers or parents to care for orphans and foster kids and widows. So we started an organization called Man Up and Go in 2011. In which that's what we do is we mobilize men to get off the proverbial couch and engage in the fatherless challenge and crisis that we have. And it's something I'm really passionate about in terms of the next generation and how we get upstream from some of those societal issues. And then on the sports side, we partner regularly in the venues that we manage and the communities that we have to bring a clinic together with ex-Major League Baseball players, an organization called Rise to Greatness, where these guys and these men have the same heart for inner city and fatherless kids. And we provide a free clinic to learn how to play and get introduced to sport, where we give Rawlings donates gloves, and they get a bat and a ball, and they get a free meal, and they come in for the day. And all these major leaguers, ex-big leaguers, general managers have shown up for this, and they just give of their service and their skills and their experience. And these kids get to learn the sport, which is something obviously we're passionate about, the character development of that, and also engage with these positive leaders who happen to be men in a real positive and productive way. So we're trying to do, hit that. And thank you for bringing it up, Russell, in as many ways as possible, both professionally and personally.
What's so interesting is the gift of giving for everyone is, it's called a selfless gift, but the truth is it's selfish. When I give of whether it's of my time or a donation, I feel good. And our employees want to feel good. And so when an organization can enable the giving of time and energy and take away from, we got to make the number, make the margin, but we're here giving. If you want to elevate employee engagement, then that is one of the most critical methods, because you're now connecting purpose, mission, time, care. We're coming to this, to me, of the Industrial Revolution is ending, and we're in this humanization revolution, a new humanization of leadership, of teaming, of purpose, for connection, because there's so much mobility. The choices are going to be unique and radically different right in front of us. So I love that, of how much you give.
And to your point, go ahead.
Good.
I was just saying, to your point earlier in the question that you asked about the next generation and how you lead.
Yeah.
Look, they're perceptive. They know when you're sincere and when you're genuine. And when you go deliver on those service qualities that align with your values organizationally, we do a habitat build every year. We donate a house for a family. Oftentimes that family is a fatherless, family. It's a single mother. And it just aligns all of these things. And people in your organization, one, a lot of it's their idea. And two, they understand whether you're sincere in your purpose and genuine in your faith and in your action.
Yeah. It comes back to, do I really trust what you're saying, or are you just a bunch of words? That is what I noticed when I was part of a very large organization. The company got acquired, is they would keep asking, is the CEO really meaning it? What's the genuineness of this? Or are they just, the right phrase for the right time for the right analyst? So genuineness matters, which is that trust aspect. I want to share your wisdom with the listeners about investing in talent development. You spend a lot in hiring. You do a lot and take your time to hire right. Okay, fine. You've got someone in the right role. You give them trust. You set with clear expectation. But like in sport, there's not an athlete who doesn't have a coach, whether it's Shaquille O'Neal or the young kidder, my young granddaughter who's trying to be a pitcher. So tell me about your philosophy of the ROI of development of skill and coaching in the broadest sense, and why, and how you feel like, yes, this is something that is important to us. It's not just a secondary thing.
We all need coaches, right? Mentors, coaches, call it what you want. Look, I have an executive coach, right, that I utilize. He's been with me for 7 years, and Rob Faw is his name, and he's extraordinary. And since then, we've had people on our leadership team who've said, hey, I want a little bit of that. Would you be willing to invest in some coaching, executive coaching for me? And the answer is yes. So we have a budget set aside for executive coaching for some of our leadership team. And then when you get down to the general manager level, I'm going really practical with your question here.
That's fine. It's good. So I want my audience to hear these practical methodologies.
Yeah. And hopefully what it proves is that it's extremely important. The ROI on it and ROE on it is very high, extraordinarily high. And there's so much value in someone who aligns with your values, who can also provide the coaching from a business and organizational development perspective. We then just launched one of our largest clients and longest lasting clients, the city administrator there, who was our point of contact, just retired from the city, and he was a great leader. And so we just brought him on to launch, probably 12 months ago, an internal coaching and development program then for our general managers and aspiring general managers. As you continue to grow, you can only grow as large as the pipeline of leaders that you have and can go retain. And so we've got a pretty robust acquisition strategy, not just for business development, but we call it talent acquisition. And so we use a CRM for that as well, just like we would, prospects and new opportunities. We've got a list of those people out in the workforce that we would like to go get. And then we are developing internally as well. And so this city administrator has launched, our sports facilities companies leadership development high performing institute, if you will. And it's a 9-month process that kind of goes with the school year, September through the spring, once a month, half a day event. And then we meet in person quarterly as well, aligned with kind of our leadership summit that we do. And then maybe a couple of industry conferences where we can get together. And every month it's a different topic. It's a lot of soft skill stuff for us. And then we've got real, skills and expertise related to venue management and business, whether it's accounting and marketing and sales and all of those, leadership, team development pieces that are practical.
So you're going deep and and broad.
Yep, that's
for
right.
Your talent development. And it's not just coaching, because coaching has a very specific meaning in terms of helping you see your own issues. But there also is this skill development and practice that you obviously do on the job. I have two more things I want to talk about. One is McKinsey reported that one of the problems with low engagement is that team leaders don't spend enough time developing their team member talent and coaching. That they're spending 1 day a week in administrative tasks. They're spending a lot of other times doing firefighting or policy, overcoming policy, and then their own independent individual contributor work. And so they're only able to spend like 27% of their time on what is the number one thing for retention and growth, which is developing great talent. How do you manage that? Keeping the team leader from playing wide receiver, quarterback, and and defensive end all at once. What's your philosophy in that in your organization?
Yeah, well, so it starts at a baseline of can you lead yourself, right? And in the job you're in, and can you be a high performance there? Then we look at how are we leading others, and and it doesn't mean that as a manager perspective, I mean, are you leading up? Are you leading horizontally, right? Certainly, are you leading down as well? So then we look at that. And as team members do those couple of things, really well, I'd say, Russell, the fortunate thing for us is we've been in this massive kind of growth trajectory for quite some time. And that kind of makes it easier, right? Because there's always opportunity for high performers, always. And, you look at organizations like, I think Nike does this and others, where you don't stay in a specific job long. You may go into a completely different vertical. And because you're a good leader and you've got those skills, you mix it up and you get different perspective and things tend to, stay fresh. I wouldn't say we go to that extreme here, but because we're growing so much and there's additional opportunity, we're looking for those high performing and high potential folks. And once they choose, they prove they can lead themselves and then lead others. Now, can you lead a system, right? And it doesn't matter what that system is. If, my background's in architecture, I'm not doing much with architecture these days, but, operations, market, you can lead a system and something else. And then ultimately, can you lead a culture, right? In that way. And so that's the hierarchy we look at. And, my business partner, Dev Patik, he coined kind of those 4 stages for us. And it's something we still evaluate, I'd say softly, as we look at the high potential folks. And as we continue to grow and we're opening up a, new leadership role with big strategic responsibility for us, you can start to, tap those folks and then onboard them in the way that we talked about when we started this conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you. Let's finish on one last topic. I've had a long career, a very successful career with many more years ahead. If you had advice to chief people officers, talent acquisition persons, team leaders, strategic team leaders, a manager of a team, from all your wisdom and experience, what would be the 3 pieces of advice you want to give to those up and coming? What if you could summarize 3 wisdoms, what do you think?
Yeah, well, first of all, it was very kind the way that you shared, you're getting older with some experience here, how you teed that up. So thank you.
Me too.
Thank you for that. I think the first would be, the first thing that came to mind was a proverb that I think of regularly, and it's success equals good planning and hard work. As simple as that. Success equals good planning and hard work. And the second part of that proverb is hastiness leads to failure, right? So good planning, hard work, and anything, that equals success. So that's the first thing. The second thing that comes to mind is that you're building lifelong relationships, and it kind of gets back to that trust bank account with every single person you're engaging in or engaging with. If you think about it in terms of I'm going to build a lifelong relationship here, you're going to handle that differently, right? So everything's about perspective. And when you have a more long-term perspective, you tend to handle situations better and differently that are better for you in the long term. Then the third piece is you're thinking about, the next generation. I wish that I would have understood the law of compounding interest better at a younger age. And I don't mean it financially, although that's important, right? Compounding interest as you're building wealth. I just mean as you're building anything, right? A relationship with your spouse, as you're building a business, put in the work every day. You hear the 2% better, but every day if you show up, whether it's fitness, working out, financial, family, friends, all of those things, just keep putting it away, stocking it away, keep getting after it. I heard a quote recently, Russell, that most people overestimate what they can accomplish in a year, but drastically underestimate what they can accomplish in 10 years. And so if you keep putting that time in, you're going to look back one day, and in our case, it's 20 years later, and you're going to say, holy cow, look at what we're a part of. Look at what's been created. Look at what's been accomplished. And at the same time, we're a 20-year-old company just getting started. The best is yet to come. Be optimistic, be positive, and work your tail off.
No problem. So I love that look at every relationship from a long-term perspective, because you probably won't be heated in the moment when you know you're going to be engaged with that person for a long time. Nothing, of course, replaces hard work. And what's the expression? Hard work and preparation meets opportunity, and they call that luck.
Yeah.
I want to bring together.
Yeah.
And I think your third point in terms of this long-term view of every day matters. And before you know it, you're an overnight success in 20 years.
Yeah.
I found that for me, an overnight success in 40 years. All right. Took a while, but we got there. And I always like to say is, if you don't put it in writing, it's not really a goal. Yeah. What I try to tell the young is, if you really want to achieve your dreams, write them down. And learned it from Zig Ziglar.
Yeah.
Because your subconscious can help take care of you and drive you and bring through. So, Jason, I want to just thank you. I want to congratulate you on your tremendous 20 years of success. And most importantly, thank you for giving to our nation and our communities and the families, and that you make a difference every day in your own unique way with the purpose and value and mission and actual work your company does for our nation and our people and our towns, and even down to the family and the individual child. So thank you. Thank you for being my guest today. And I'm extremely grateful for your time.
Russell, thanks for those kind words. And more importantly, thanks for the impact that you're making. Thanks for the next generation of leaders you're creating. And for this generation, how much I'm getting to, learn from you and take back to the people that, I'm blessed to be a part of as well. So congratulations on your success, your footprint, and the impact that you're making.
Thank you. Right. Isn't our job as leaders is to look for the magnificence and unlock the unlimited potential and pay it forward?
Amen.
That's what we're doing.
Amen.
Have a great day. Have a great day.
Thank you.
This episode with Jason Clement was really powerful because Jason's company works and develops sports facilities across the nation that enable 25 million people to be engaged in sport. And when you think about it, it's not just, we're talking about NFL sport. No, we're talking about the community sport, the youth of today, the leaders of tomorrow, and the value sport brings to the character development of individuals. What he's been able to do is bring the value of sport as being of trust within the team, self-accountability to each other within the team, and then also being a top individual contributor, because he loves baseball in that regard, as a philosophy that he carries forward that creates the values of his organization. And so I think there's a lot that he shared in that aspect of it all. I appreciated Jason being vulnerable, of sharing the mistakes of what weren't his standard operating procedures when he was young, and how he had to change as a leader as he grew to a 3,000 person organization. And I know I may have had my mistakes as a micromanager and not connecting and not understanding. So that was a fun piece of this. The other aspect that I really valued in our conversation with Jason was his commitment to developing young men, young fatherless men, not discounting the importance of women as the heart and soul of the family, but that even young children, boys and girls, need fathers as leaders. And it is the job of a leader, whether it's a team leader, a family leader, to set example so that we can model behavior, because that's how we learn, is through imitation and modeling. It's the core of our human evolution, of our human biology. I think the last thing that I took away from our conversation with Jason was just the importance of fundamentals for success. Planning, hard work, consistency, not being hasty, being authentic, truthful, living your words. I really love the fact that he talked about connecting the purpose of the company and its values to the purpose of the individual. And I think Jason is really able in sport of how they change lives and impact lives, and why you would work for a company that is impacting lives, because they see it every day, from the concession stand to the coach to the family that's attending a given venue to watch an event. So I want to encourage all of you that we offer a special gift for you at the Current Partners website. It's called the 12 Winning Behaviors of Magnificent Managers who deliver outstanding team results. So it's available right now at kernandpartners.com. It's full of the wisdom that reflects what we've been talking about on today's episode and all my other episodes. It's a great resource for you to share in your organization. So go get the 12 winning behaviors of magnificent managers who deliver outstanding team results at kernandpartners.com. Thanks so much for listening today. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Trailblazing Leaders Podcast. If you want to check out more episodes, you're going to find them on all major streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course, YouTube. The podcast is also available at our website at kernandpartners.com. Thank you for being with us today, and we'll see you on our next episode.